I think the minute I stepped on our practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team, and I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro, right?
Like, I like doing something, stopping and learning from it.
Like, it just looked like it was a heavy hit.
If it's up, it's not up.
You know, that's the first time I played like professionally.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there's two Scottish guys, and they said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
Rugby is a sport where that's often coupled with actually having a good time.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are awesome."
Grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime, and this is the show where we speak to people about the opportunities they have found, created, or taken advantage of via rugby. We have an amazingly special guest today, and I know we say it every week because I mean it every single week. She is coming straight out of London by way of Jamaica. She is the current vice president for the Jamaica Rugby Union. She is a sports psychologist with her own company, Dragonfly Pathways. She is a former national team member, if even just but for a moment. And of course, a media personality, just doing talks, putting out that great, amazing energy. It's Keisha Ann Down. And, it was so fun just being able to talk to her. I mean, I've actually had a lot of connection with the Jamaica Rugby Union in terms of guys like Bruce, who is based out of New York, but he does the recruiting for Jamaica and everything like that. But to be able to get another piece of that trio, and you'll hear more about it as we go on. But to be able to continue to talk and get an even bigger depth and to see the power that this woman has been able to do with also continue to develop women's rugby in Jamaica and push and promote for the importance and significance of it, to her, even just her own story of just being able to start from rugby and have how far into it she's been. I mean, the mere fact of, we still in this kind of era where rugby is still developing, but to know that there was a strong element in some cases back as far in the 80s and the 70s. And it's, to this day, we're still seeing the development. It was really dope to be able to hear her story of rugby from child into the present now, and especially the number of ways that rugby clearly has been calling her name to come join it and help and be part of the mission. She's recognized by World Rugby, and this was great. It was a really good interview, really good talk, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy this one. Just before we get into it, let's talk about a couple things. One, it sucks that the Rugby World Cup Women's is going to get postponed until next year. I know we probably can't be that surprised by it because New Zealand hasn't exactly been the most inviting into the country since COVID started. Obviously, they locked themselves down, and they were open for a little bit with Australia, and then just like 2 or 3 cases kicked in, and they were just like, nah, we shutting it all down. So, I mean, it's kudos. They've done a really good job in suppressing the virus, but, obviously it comes at a cost, and the cost is going to end up being what we see with the Rugby World Cup women. So 2021 is going to move to 2022. Hopefully we still have the Olympics along the way. So at least there's going to be some international high-stakes rugby to be played. Of course, we're still getting the little bits of international play, with Madrid Sevens. Kudos to the men and the women. They didn't do as well as they wanted to, and of course the women had to actually back out on the second one. But at the same time, we are at least starting to get something back. And even now, as I'm recording, we have preseason games for Major League Rugby as well. So big shout out. It's nice to at least get something going, just a little bit of something. We still have a lot to do. And hopefully by the summertime, we are going to be able to see some level of, relief. I mean, we're getting a little bit of relief. I mean, there's some states have opened up more. I know Baton Rouge is more phase 3 now, and clearly Texas and Florida have said screw it all and just said we open out here. So we'll see what happens. But at least there is rugby occurring. So I don't want to hold you guys off too much. I just want to do a quick reminder. Please, guys, if you enjoyed these podcasts, let your friends know about it. Share it with your friends and family. Continue to spread it. Thank you to everybody who's been listening to these. It means the most, and I love being able to bring these conversations up because we got so many interesting people in rugby that I think need to be highlighted more and more, and I think it'll only help our industry and help the culture of rugby and help the community of rugby even more with every highlighted story that goes along with it. But please, guys, share it. Let them know they can find it on Google or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that they feel like they need to listen to podcast streaming, or just even on the GiftTimeRugby.com website. And of course, also, please don't forget that you guys can also watch the videos on YouTube at youtube.com/GiftTimeRugby. Please subscribe up on there. Let your friends know. We're starting to put up new content here and there, starting to develop it out as things start to come into fruition. Got some special things coming, I know. So you guys are going to enjoy that, and it'll be well worth the subscription. I do tell. And if anything, it's just you guys are going to be able to get to see these people live and be able to really appreciate what they have and what they do. So with that being said, look, guys, I want you guys to enjoy. I hope you guys know what's up. Yo, Keisha Ann Down. Check it out.
Grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime A. Bailu, and I got an incredible V, an incredible I, and one of the best P's here with us today, our VIP, Vice President for the Jamaican Rugby Union, a sports therapist, sports life coach, sports consultant. It's levels, and media influencer coming up. Keisha, no, I'm gonna go full name, Keisha. All right, we're gonna go full name on this one. Keisha Ann Down. Keish, thank you so much for coming through today.
Thank you so much for having me. And wow, what an introduction. I definitely hope I can live up to that.
All the pressure. No, I have no doubt. I'm the one feeling intimidated out here right now. I always like, talking about where I learned about people. And I think it's been very interesting. So I've heard about you for a couple of years, but I didn't really get to know until I think there was it was a World Rugby article that spoke about the women in leadership and the scholarship that was gotten. And your name came up as one that came up, in 2017, 2018, something like that?
Actually, just 2019.
It was 2019? Okay.
Yeah.
See,
just the other day.
Pandemic time. All right. It was like 70 years ago. Like, no, but yeah, it was just, I heard about it. And then, of course, you got to go research through. And I kind of realized that our paths have crossed on a couple occasions without actually realizing. I think most notably it was in Cary, North Carolina, for the Olympic the NACRA qualifiers, whenever Jamaica and Trinidad, and that was, I think, maybe 2015. Did that happen?
It could have. Admittedly, I was not part of the JRFU at that time because I was back in the UK. So it was it predates me.
So the paths have not crossed as much. So okay, I don't feel as guilty as much.
Don't feel bad.
Doesn't still take away from the fact that the impact that you've been making and learning more about your story has been really great to be able to see, and what you're trying to do with Jamaica Rugby Union, with women's rugby, how you've been able to impact within World Rugby, standing up for being a spokesperson for your country has been awesome. So it's definitely a real pleasure to be able to get this moment.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It has certainly been an interesting journey, and I think one of the big things for me is rugby has had such a massive impact on my life. you know, and from both sides, from the English side and from the Jamaican side. And my dad played rugby every Saturday, you know, and he also refed later on. So growing up, I was at the rugby field all the time in Jamaica. And so, you know, there weren't a lot of girls around playing then. However, being one of the only girls that would be dragged out with their dad, you know, I throw the ball about a bit. And I definitely say that when you're surrounded by incredible athletes, it's extremely daunting because I wasn't one of those, you know? So it was, there are some incredible female players who were around when I was kind of in my late teens and early 20s, who phenomenal athletes that it would have been so amazing if they had really had the opportunity to showcase, you know, their talents and their skills, because these women, they still are, you know, incredible in terms of their ability. You know, and it's I think that's the whole point, that there's so many women that are incredible athletes, that have incredible skills, that, you know, you play for a little while, and then because you don't necessarily know what the next steps could be, you don't take those steps. So it's almost like when there are things that you know that you don't know.
True.
However, there are lots of things that you don't know. And that is the clincher. And so, you know, it was really interesting to be on both sides of the Atlantic, because within the UK, I played for my university. And that's when I actually properly started playing. And that's when I had a position. I was second row, and I got to play, and I was part of this incredible team of women who literally 3 weeks ago, I spoke to my captain, you know, and it was phenomenal. I mean, Bronwyn was the same bubbly, warm person that she was. And I remember when I first met her, she scared the living daylights out of me. You know, she was this half Chinese, half Welsh girl who was tall, very tall, and just incredible. And she had a black eye. And I'm thinking, I don't think this sport's for me. No, not really.
Wait, let me ask, because, you know, you're going from a person like your dad who's bringing you out to the pitch, so you've already got an idea of what this is, to now you're like, oh, wait, this is for real? Like, it's like, wait, what was I watching? So I kind of want to know, like, what is your mindset in those aspects? Because, you know, you get this UK version, and now you're seeing yourself there versus in Jamaica, which I want to actually even get into rugby in the 80s and early 90s and that. But, you know, you're seeing in Jamaica, like, what do you feel was different in being able to, in that culture shock, maybe, to say the least, of rugby?
I think one of the main differences is in Jamaica, it was very much a male-dominated sport. And so whenever I was playing with the old Crocs. And so those were the over 35s. And, you know, they were nice because they weren't, my dad was a serious player and could hit, you know, and so they didn't want him to tackle them. So when we were playing, it was touch rugby. And they treated me with kid gloves. I think that was the whole thing, you know. And so when I went to university, it was literally, I was on the sideline watching somebody else play, watching the boys play. And watching them, you know, there was another very small girl. She came up to me and she says, "Hey, are you interested in rugby?" I said, "Yeah, I love rugby." And she went from there to say, "Well, you know, I'm part of the Kingston University women's rugby team. Do you want to come and play?" And I said to her, "You play?" Because she's tiny, right? And she said, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, if you can do it, yeah, sure, why not? I can do it." And I suppose the difference was, in Jamaica, I'd been surrounded by athletes. Right. So completely intimidated. You know, there was no way I was going to attempt to play against people who could, I mean, phenomenal athletes. And so at university, you know, the pressure is definitely off, because it's seen as a community and it's seen as fun. And I hadn't realized how competitive we got. And we got very competitive. And so, you know, the first year we beat Brunel University, which was like, yes. And I think we beat St. Mary's as well. And these are like big universities with amazing teams. So yeah, however, it was literally, you know, somebody I thought, if they're playing, yeah, sure, I can give it a go.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of how.
I can see that. And it's funny as you say this, because I had a conversation with this young lady, Anna Woosery. She has a podcast, Black Girl Rucks, out in London. And so I asked her the same, because even within the concept of UK rugby, I actually, you know, this is where the learning process has always been, where I assumed that in the UK, with the establishment of rugby and everything, that even though I know women's rugby always will have a little bit of a lag behind because cultural and social dynamics, I thought it would have been a lot further ahead than, say, in the US or other places. But whenever she was telling me about that, it's still in its like building stage. And so you still are getting that surprise of like, okay, women are able to jump in, and you're actually seeing this peak of it. It always shocks me a little bit. And so to hear this story of, you know, we know it exists, but I didn't even realize people are still playing like this. Wait, hold on. No, wait, what's going on? Oh, but no, continue, please.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, you know, for me, university rugby really took in that whole concept of rugby as a game for all.
Right.
And that was the thing. You know, I wasn't a runner. However, I could tackle.
Let's go.
I can tackle. I can still tackle.
It's like present tense, not past tense.
Present tense. I can still tackle. You know, and I was great in a scrum. I was great in a ruck and maul, and I think for me, being on a 15s team literally meant that everybody had a place. Everybody had a role. So you had those that were super fast. And let me tell you, there's a big difference between the grass in the UK, where when you fall, it's soft. It's soft. You know, the grass in Jamaica on the rugby field, you're looking for the grass.
This is where you go like, okay, how tough is my skin? I don't mean that figuratively. Literally.
Literally. You know, so that's one of the differences as well. I was kind of looking at that ground thinking, wow, that yeah, that's not fun.
Oh, yeah. We've had a couple of those. I know we've played in Texas and sometimes in Florida, where it's just like, guys, I need you to understand. I feel like we have very different definitions of what a field means. All right, I expected to see some green. Like, can we get through some of this? It's this brown plus stones. What is happening right now? Oh, so let me ask. You know, you get into the UK and you start playing that first game. Now, like you said, you've been playing touch. You've had your dad. But whenever you got into that first game, like you had your opportunity to play, like what was going through your mind at that point? And really, how long before from recruiting point to game time did you have?
A week.
It's nice. Sounds average. This sounds about average. You know, rugby average. Who needs
a week? So I think there was one training session, and I have to say they were incredible. You know, there were two retired coaches. You know, they came out for the love of the game, and we would be up there training at Tallworth and covered in mud. I mean, that's really what I remember about rugby when at university, is just the amount of mud. And you know, it was the social aspect of it that was really important, though. It was that building of sisterhood, that it's so unique to to a lot of the sports that you see, because you're trying to be the best that you can be, or you're working to be the best you can be, yet you're also making sure to build up your fellow team members so that you can really strive and move forward and do something magical. And so the first match, I was just scared. I was literally scared. I was thinking, what am I doing? Who am I fooling? It was total imposter syndrome.
Right.
And I remember Bron literally saying, listen, just get the first hit in. After the first hit, you'll be fine. Just don't miss that tackle. You make that tackle. Every time you see that person with the ball, you make sure they don't get up. Obviously, we kind of say things very differently now. However, back then, it was hit him hard.
It still counts. It still counts even to this day. I don't care what level it is that first time, because that's the one that scares you the most, because you're just like, is it going to hurt me more than it hurts them? But once you realize, like, oh, okay, my body is actually can be able to handle this, and then you're like, okay, I don't feel so bad anymore.
That's it. And it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible, because we were, as a new team, we did exceedingly well together, and it gave me a lot of confidence. I would say that it really helped in so many aspects. So when I went on to student governance and went to be president of my students' union, a lot of that, if not all of that, had to do with the fact that I had this group of people, and it wasn't just the women that I played with. It was the fact that I was part of the rugby club. And then further beyond that, it wasn't just the rugby club, it was the entire sporting community. Right. And that was something that, was really special, kind of seeing how people could come together. And yes, we were all competitive. We loved it when we were winning and the boys weren't.
Hey guys, I just want to take a quick moment to talk to you about the Rugby Outlet Mall. Now, I know you guys have heard me talk about this many times in the show before, typically in the intro, but I want to really make sure to get your focus on it, because the Rugby Outlet Mall is not just the commerce hub for GiftTime Rugby, but it is an area where we want to be able to create the movement and the symbolic elements that add to the movement. The Rugby Outlet Mall is here so that we can have something to not just to have for the field, but more importantly to be able to have as a regular lifestyle. Because as you know, rugby is not just a sport. It's a whole way of life. It is a movement. And we have everything moving from cultural to your pop culture items like our Rugby Zon shirts and sweaters, as well as representing for the culture as we continue to develop the HBCU Rugby Classic. And we want to continue to support these things because it only grows the sport overall. We are continually growing to be able to make sure that we're connecting with you on a personal level as well as a rugby love. And for you guys that are listening to the podcast and listening to this show, want to let you know that you are going to get 20% off all gear that is under the category of GiftTime Rugby Network and the HBCU Rugby Classic. That is basically the entire store. And all you need to use is promo code GROWRUGBY, GREAUX Rugby. And with that, you guys will get 20% off any clothing that is in the store as of right now. And of course, we're always building up more and more each time. But we want to make sure that you are able to symbolize your rugby faithfulness to the rest of the world and let them know that there is an opportunity to be able to develop, to grow, and to get better each and every time in this sport. So guys, I hope you guys check it out. Definitely go, and you guys can go to www.rugbyoutletmall.com. That is rugbyoutletmall.com. Guys, you're not going to want to miss one bit of this. Now let's get back to it.
We like to rub that in.
You got to get the double up. It's all about look. We not only did we check mark off 2 of those, but we're also going to let it be known this is a full school effort. All right, we're bringing the whole school. We got the whole crowd with us. Oh, I love it. Like, did you guys have, because you said you guys were such a new club at that point, what was the alumni base? Like, how new was it for you guys? Like, was it like they had just started maybe 5 years ago, or was it like you guys like a year? Oh wow, you guys were new.
New. So I think they'd started maybe 6 months before I joined.
Oh no.
Or it was new because I joined and it was our first competition, like first series of competitions that we had. So yeah, like 2 games in, maybe a few more games in. So it was new.
And
what was very new.
What was that support like, even around it? Because again, we're talking about a new bringing in more women into the sport at this point, and it's still in its early stages. In that, as ironic as this 200-year history of this sport has been, But what was the environment like? Obviously, the boys got support, but what was the environment like for you guys?
It was really interesting, I suppose, because it was university and it based out of a university. The funding was there for the entire club. Nice. And so, certainly we didn't feel that we were being treated any differently in regards to that at the time. I don't know what it's like now for the university. And maybe I just wasn't aware of it. I think that's one of those things that, we were having a great time. We had our kit, we had our coaches, we had 2 coaches. We always had transport to the games. Wednesday, we had Wednesdays off, at university to go and play. And there was never an issue or a problem about going and playing at another space. We had, I think maybe there was some disparity in terms of the field. So the boys would get the top field, the first field, and we would get the fields that you would have to walk miles to. So people would come to see the rugby and they'd stop and watch the boys play rugby or the boys play football. And, if you wanted to see the girls play, well, you had to kind of keep on walking. So maybe that was slightly...
You didn't realize they were like, look, we're trying to help you guys get your warm-ups in, all right? Like, we want to make sure everybody is awake and energized by the time they get to the field, all right? Get that blood flowing. They helped you. They were like, look, the boys, we're going to give them a disadvantage. This is their handicap. People are going to be tired by the
No, and do you know what? We were really lucky. The university I went to, we had a great space. So we had beautiful fields. Nice. And we had equipment and there was money for sport. So we were in a really good space in terms of that. So really, I didn't see the disparities in the game financially so much until I actually moved into governance within the Jamaica Rugby Football Union. So it's within the JRFU. And when we would be asking, for support or, trying to get sponsorship for the teams or anything like that, everybody wanted to support the boys. Everybody wanted to put money there. And to get money for the girls they were like, women play rugby. And that's where you really saw the disparity coming out. And so that's kind of been quite interesting to see that. And then now being in the UK, I've been lucky enough to be presenting for one of the rugby shows and, for the women's rugby show. And what was really interesting is even going to some of the fields. The fields that the women here would get to play on aren't necessarily the best fields.
Right.
Or instead of going and playing at the main pitch, they get to play at the other pitch. Right. So that was really interesting. So for me, Exeter Chiefs are fantastic in that they stated categorically that their women's team would always get to play on the main pitch. And that is incredible. I know it doesn't sound like a big thing.
No, but it is. It's the nuances that make the biggest difference. And I think that's one thing that we learned. And I want to get into that. We're building because there's a lot we got to get through. All right, we can't be jump skipping over here.
Sorry. Rewind.
So let me ask, because I love where it all ends up with you, but in this process, you've been playing, you're working with the team, you're getting an idea. When you were playing in college, did you foresee yourself delving further into rugby like this, or no?
Nope. It was something you did. You know, I think at university you get the opportunity to try out different things. And I'd always enjoyed sport. Because of my asthma, though, I'd found it difficult to participate in a lot of sports. And I had this amazing treatment in Central America, in Honduras, where this doctor injected me with 5 different types of snake venom.
Oh, wow.
Really interesting, to get rid of my asthma. And
naturopathic. You gotta love it.
It worked. It was amazing. So all of a sudden, instead of feeling as if I was breathing through a straw, I could breathe really well. And so in Jamaica, I was always in the pool. Swimming was my thing. And so university, after this treatment, that was a by chance because I was volunteering in Honduras for a year. You know, I come and I'm able to run and move, and it's like, wow. And so I loved sport. My dad's side of the family are exceedingly sporty, and I was the least sporty of them. So
basically, you're just saying I was the least elite of the elite. I feel
not even. I was like at the very, very bottom, you know, just going out and throwing a ball around kind of space. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think I was really lucky because I met these incredible women. I spoke to Lou, who was in second row with me just the other day, you know, and these are women that I haven't spoken to in ages. They became family, and 20 years on, it's amazing that we can have a conversation and we can have communication, and it kind of is one of the things that, you know, I find so important about women's rugby. And I've seen that, and this is specifically as a 15s player. I can't talk anything about this. Sevens is just too fast.
I know my sport. All right, this is my code. All right, this other one, you guys.
I mean, that's for a whole. Although I'm telling you, Gift, honestly, I have watched some incredible rugby over the last couple of months, you know, since October to now. And I call people up and I say, you cannot believe the standard of rugby that these women are playing.
It's agreed.
And so many people want to talk about men's rugby. And I'm like, yeah, men's rugby, great. However, have you seen these athletes?
100.
They're phenomenal.
You know what's funny? So I had this realization about 2014, 2015, all right? So it was, you know, you always see men and women play. I've never really had too much of a scope. There's always something, but it's harder to see, I think, sometimes at the grassroots level because the range is so high, and that's on both sides. But it wasn't until I started going to the 7 series for women they used to have it in Atlanta, Georgia. That's about 8 hours from where I'm at. And so I was able to cover it. And I remember the first time watching it. And let me tell you, when it came to the media, it was me and I think literally one other person who was not part of USA Rugby. And I remember watching these games and I'm like, yo, this is a beautiful, like, they're so fast. They're so strong.
So fast.
And I'm like, this is completely free flowing. This is, I don't understand what people are talking about where the games don't match. And so I had that, and we had that leading up into the Olympics, which I always will tell people. The Olympics, I think, was the first breaking out party for women's rugby because it was the first time that you got to sit down and just watch it straight with an investment. And I think they killed, to be honest with you, and not even pandering, I thought they were better than the men's. I literally got into the men's side and I was like, yeah, I mean, this is all right. And I don't really know if I feel like this is the same level of intensity. Like, I don't feel the hunger is the same. Whereas then when it got to the 2017 Rugby World Cup in Ireland, and I was just like blown away, absolutely blown away. And I was just like, this is perfect. And at that point where I felt like, okay, this is where the sport now has to change. And I think we've seen it with women's rugby. Now it had to make the change because there was no flaws in how that was between the coverage, the outcome, the product. Like, it was amazing top to bottom. The finals were great. It was everything you could ask for. And I was just like, how can anyone be like, no, this game is not equivalent? Like, what are you talking about? And again, not to pander, I do feel like I think women's rugby has an advantage over men's rugby in the sense, and this is an ironic statement, but I still believe it, in the fact that I think rugby is the only team contact sport that has enough notoriety to be able to gather the best athletes of women, you know, and because, I mean, there's combat sports, but I feel like one, that's individual, and two, it's a completely different mindset. Yeah. And I don't honestly feel like field hockey is the worldwide element that rugby has. Look, okay, it's not in the U.S., all right? Look.
Well, you know, I personally never played field hockey. However, I have a cousin that played for the Olympics, so in field hockey. So, you know,
fair enough. But not to say that field hockey is bad. I just don't think it has the same global, like it's very specific to areas, very similarly to cricket, but it's big in its spots, you know. So I don't think you're going to naturally have that gravitation to that. And then the only other one would have been women's American football, and I just don't see that being able to grow just based off of the culture of the sport here in the U.S. And it doesn't really resonate well outside of the U.S. So you have rugby as this sole element, maybe hockey, the other one, sole element where women can come down to ice hockey, could come back together and have that contact. So when you see them, it's like you're really getting the best of the best in that field. And I think it completely changes what the investment in the game is, and especially how everybody, you know, performs in it.
Yeah. And, you know, I think that's the big thing in terms of performance. And it's really interesting kind of seeing the differences and the disparity between plays. And certainly from, you know, Rugby Americas, we look at our region,
right?
You know, we have to look at the disparities between, say, a Canada, a USA, and then the Caribbean, you know, the islands there, or Mexico. And if you even take it to the fact that within RAN, you know, you've seen only 2 countries have 15s.
Right.
Only USA and Canada. Yes, Mexico, I think Mexico now have their 15 squad. We're working on our 15s squad at the moment, so definitely keep an eye out there, because
hey, my guy Bruce Martin, I see him recruiting. I see him doing the work out there.
Bruce is so hardworking, honestly. You know, it's amazing, because everybody that I talk to, any of my friends, my phone rings and they go, "Oh, is that Bruce or Jerry? Or is it both of them?" It's like, yeah, it's constant, honestly. My phone rings and at stupid o'clock, and it's the boys, you know? So yeah. And that's where family comes in as well.
Right.
You know, in that you get to that point where you're building towards something and you're wanting something and you're putting in the time, effort, and energy to get people and to get the sport to a particular place that it's benefiting so many individuals. And definitely in terms of Bruce and Jerry are the ones with the passion.
Yo,
I'm the one that says no all the time. Jerry will tell you that without a doubt. My vice president tells me no 24/7. It's like, not 24/7.
No. How do I feel like
you
this?
have to have a starting point. I
was gonna say, why does this feel like the lineup for American Idol right here? You know, we gotta have a Simon, we gotta have a Paula, we gotta make sure we have it all ready.
I am so Simon.
Oh, I can believe it. Look, I'm sorry, guys. No, I can see Jerry as Paula. Look, I know you guys are great. I love you guys. Oh, I love it. You know, it is that dynamic. You need to have that grouping of passion and balance where it allows a movement to go smoothly and controlled, because that's how you get it. It's incremental growth, and it's one of those things that are sometimes very hard to be able to take in, because we want it obviously to happen like as fast as possible, like let's go, but it is a systemic process.
That's it. And, you know, I think one of the big things, certainly over the last, from 2016, 2017, you know, we have at the union, we have been building, and we have pretty much been building from scratch. The rule book wasn't there. Right. You know, we got into office and literally it was like, well, where are the notes? Where's the information? How do we do? And it was starting from scratch. And definitely there was a lot of fighting, a lot of backing and throwing, you know.
That's how it goes.
It's how it goes. And I think the one thing is we were able to keep respect,
right.
You know, and I think if you're able to keep respect, then you're able to move beyond any disagreements, and you're able to find a common ground, and you're able to communicate. And I think because of the respect, we were able to keep communication levels going and keep communication levels open. And now we have a board that works. Nice. We have board meetings, we have club meetings. And, you know, people might say, but that's nothing big. For us, it's a big deal.
Right.
And it's putting those things into place that it's so important. So while we're going out there and the players are winning, we're also making sure things are happening at the back end so that we can continue to fly and do well.
Hey everybody, this is just the Brave Train sending out a personal little video diary to all you people out there, where I am going to document me riding most of the way between Singapore and Tokyo for the 2019 Rugby World Cup. Number one is because as part of my business I do Rugby Lovers Guide to Asia. Number two is I want to bring a lot of exposure to the rugby clubs and the rugby NGOs and charities. Also on a personal level, I just want to break the funk I've kind of felt I've been into for the last 10 years.
So for the next 12 months I poured myself into the Singapore to Tokyo campaign, but it still wasn't enough. I needed help, and it came from Louisiana.
We in Singapore, baby!
Gift from GiftTime Rugby USA is a extroverted tour de force.
Say hi to my people out there.
Which makes up for my social shortcomings.
This place is unbelievable. No! It's not just it's like
what's he supposed to do?
Morons, a bunch of morons.
Guys, picture with me. Picture. Australian. G'day, mate. You can use my phone. But what unites us is a hunger for adventure.
Off to KL, Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah! Woo! Gift, where are we?
We're in
Mount Fuji, baby!
Our love of Asian rugby culture.
1, 2, 3, settle!
Yeah!
Rugby is starting to develop here in Cambodia for women as well.
Valkyries, the mighty, mighty Valkyries!
And allows us to overcome incredible obstacles.
It's just got so thick. It's just so thick here. Now it's pouring down rain again.
But coming to this Thai-Cambodia border has renewed all the aggression.
So the whole thing's gone buggered. I got hit. What? I got Thailanded by a motorbike. I can just feel that knee, that ankle just going in all the wrong directions under the weight of my body. But that doesn't compare to the pain of failure.
I'm dying. Oh, I'm dying.
And that's what I've been worried about this whole time. We're out here, we're running out of energy, we're running out of money, and we're feeling isolated. And yet at that critical moment, friends, family, sometimes complete strangers come on board. Before you know it, we're back in the game. Tokyo, here we come!
Making a comeback. 4 weeks, 2,300 miles, 5 countries,
After all the trials and tribulations, this ride had become deeply personal. All that mattered now was getting to that Rugby World Cup game in Tokyo.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Be easy. Go check out redearthfilms.vhx.tv to get your copy of Singapore to Tokyo any way we can. That's redearthfilms.vhx.tv. You know, they say a well-run, a strong team is built off of a well-run administration, and because it does start from the top down, and it makes its way over. Because if you don't have that organization where those, again, the nuances, the devils in the details aren't being taken care of, it does shake the foundation. The players might be able to come, but if nobody knows where they're supposed to go, or they have to figure it on the fly, like, not only are you bound for mistake, you're almost guaranteed to have some obstacle. The obstacles are inevitable to come. It's just like, how do we smoothly bypass through them?
Definitely. And it's how to, when people say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Right.
For us, it's like, you don't even have the lemons. You have the leftover bit of the lemon. So what are you going to do with that? And I think it's about that imagination. It's about coming up with something and finding a way. And I think that's something that has been very frustrating as well as exciting to do. Honestly, it's like opening a fridge and having two things in it and making a 3-course meal. Yeah. That it's about finding different ways to make things happen. And wow, if we had a fraction of the money that some of the clubs have. So I'm not even talking big units.
We're just talking about these
the things we would be able to do. I mean, literally, we have such an amazing team. We have only 2 members of staff in the JRFU office, and they are phenomenal. Yeah. They really, really are. And honestly, all of the volunteers, like many sports, we stand on the backs of the volunteers. Right. And without volunteers, we wouldn't be able to do anything. And I think that's something as well about rugby, and it's that community. It's the reason you get up, because it's about your community, it's about your family, it's about wanting to do something and help something. And so, for me, the Women's Rugby Scholarship and being a part of the WILD group, so Women in Leadership Development Group, it's about how can I make sure that I do my best as well as sharing the information. And I think that's key. It's not just about getting to a position. You have to hold a door open, right? And you have to create pathways so people can see what those doors are. Right. Within the last 12 months, I have seen so many positions in rugby that I didn't know existed. I genuinely just didn't know, because it's not something we think about. We think about, how are we going to get the team to play? How are we going to get the kids to have a space to play? Right. And so sometimes when you're bogged down in the details, you're unable to see the big picture, see the, what else is out there. So,
I can feel that. It's a far cry difference of going from the social aspect to the administrative aspect. So for you, going from this college part to the administrator, like, what was your flipping of the switch where you were just like, okay, I need to have that, like, because I know for me, it was a weird aspect. I think we had a losing season, and I was like, all right, maybe it's time, like, to take an administrative look. And it was like, oh, I'm seeing the field, and I'm like, I'm seeing this space that needs to be filled, and I'm like, why hasn't it been filled? It's like, someone's got to do it. I was like, why not me? Like, for you, what was that moment like? Because you were with the Jamaican national team for a little bit as well too.
One stint. Literally,
it's being on the team, all right, Keisha. It's being on the team.
I'm telling you, it was being on the team with these amazing athletes and thinking, what am I doing here? Like, I should have been the water boy, honestly, right? So I cannot give myself props in that space at all.
It's okay. I'm gonna give you the props. All right, we take it from the outside.
So I spent about 22 years in the UK, and then I came back to Jamaica. Kind of a couple of things happened, and just needing to be near my family and help out at home, and to my grandfather was getting ill and my grandmother was getting very old, and so I literally arrived just in time, and my grandfather passed, and then it was helping to look after my grandmother, and so it was being in that space. I'm an only child and I'm a girl, and
the nurturing is
whereas
real.
The traditionalist inside is there, and it goes against my other non-traditionalist way of doing things.
I understand the strong inner conflict that goes. It's like, no, we are more than this, but I also need to we gotta take care. We gotta do.
Totally. So I went back to Jamaica, and my dad had been involved in the governance of Jamaica Rugby as well for, I don't know, a long time, and he wasn't anymore. However, they would still go along to the meetings. He was still part of the old crops, so he was still playing touch rugby. I mean, my dad still playing touch rugby at 70.
That's the greatest part of this sport. You can play until I've seen it till you're 90. Just keep going. I don't understand. I feel like
keep going.
The older you get, like your bones are supposed to get more brittle, but for some reason they get thicker. It's just like the osteoporosis went the opposite direction. You're just like, what? Why are they getting so tough? Stop getting
That's it. And it's brilliant. Some people remember my dad from, when he used to play before, so they automatically assume he'll hit hard, so they kind of move out of the way. So it's brilliant. So bless him.
Long-term mind games. It's playing chess, not checkers.
That was it. So literally he dragged me along, or I went with him to a rugby AGM. He says, hey, do you want to go? I said, yeah, sure, we'll go. And I had met Jerry at a rugby league game about, I don't know, 3 weeks beforehand. And we were supporting rugby league, cheering them on and stuff like that. And my dad introduced me to Jerry. And I said, hey, I'm back in Jamaica and I'm working for myself. So therefore, if you need any help with stuff, I'm happy to volunteer and help out. It was literally just as broad as that. That was it, right?
And we open the door and Pandora's box never goes closed again.
That is exactly what happened. I got to the AGM, and before we even went into the AGM, Jerry says, hey, do you want to be my vice chair? And I was like, no. And he was like, no, serious. It's like, no. I said, I'm happy to volunteer, but no.
It's like, I feel like you misunderstood what was being said here. It's like, yo, do you want me to go find some water? Do you want me to hey, I can talk to a few people to come to the games. I don't know. Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Or if you need me to make a few calls or write a few letters, I got you.
Exactly. So, somehow, when we left that meeting, I was vice chair.
You know what? Sometimes it's just like, sometimes it's a process. Sometimes it's a calling. Clearly, it was a calling that you never realized that it was meant to have.
Yeah, it was a calling I never knew I had. That's what it is. No, totally. And then, you see, the thing was, I am super competitive. I am. I admit that. And I think it comes from, even before my school days and the school I went to in Jamaica, we always were told you're the best of the best, you're the best of the best. And we kind of, have that little attitude.
Let it sink in.
It's there. It's there. And so it's a matter of, whatever I decide to do, it doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
It's about giving your all. It's about giving your best. It's about making sure things happen. And I am a policies person. I like making sure policies are in place. I like making sure things work. I like the crossing the T's and dotting the I's, and figuring out ways to make things more efficient. You know, that's kind of, I enjoy that aspect of things. And the first time I'd been on a board, I was fresh out of university, and it was a very big budget that we had. It was over £1 million that we had as a budget. And so I was in a different space, and, I'd managed to take or union with the rest of the team from being in debt to having a surplus.
Nice.
Somehow convinced them that Subway was the way to go. Brought Subway in. But it was one of those things that I really believe that, hey, together we could turn around the fortune of the JRFU, and we set about doing that. And in terms of, we still have challenges. Don't get me wrong. We still have huge challenges, and
that's
I
always a
did not
pleasure,
know.
right? Like it's you know that you're on a pathway, but it's just like, oh, we still got some serious rocks that we got to crack. But you're at least like, okay, we're moving forward. As long as we're moving,
No, definitely. And I think that's it. It's like, I didn't realize that in sport, there were issues with people and ego. I don't understand the reason I didn't realize that. However,
it doesn't make sense. I have this exact same issue all the time, where it's like, I don't really understand why you feel like there's this need to, either it's like this weird entitlement or an ownership or this weird play. It's like, we're all struggling. Why do you why does this even make sense to you? So it's like, I think logically it doesn't click, but you see it and you're just like, okay, all right, that's okay, we'll work with this, we'll work through this, but why? So
no, exactly. And the fact is, I've heard some horror stories from other unions, and I have to say that, even though Jerry and I butt heads, he is a big picture man. And he can get that energy and that excitement, and it's fantastic, because you need that. You need somebody with a vision. Right. You need somebody with that energy, with that, who genuinely believes and wants not just one club or two clubs, but the entire country to love rugby and to really take it beyond. And, it's interesting to see the lack of ego with him. And so for me, kind of working with him, it has been, I'll continue working with you, because it's about the kids. It's about the youngsters, and I think that's the heart. And I love the fact that both Bruce and Jerry are also for the women and have put so much time, effort, and energy into that, and they're two, definitely. Yet there's so many other members of the team, of the board, that are working towards that and striving. And we've got some great talent. One of the ones that definitely I'd like to see really shine is Lisa Fraser, she's our coach.
I've heard so much about her.
Oh, she's amazing. Absolutely. And I use that word a lot, it sounds like. Look, the reality is her serious talent. If it fits, it fits, exactly. She has serious talent, and there's so many talented players as well, for both the men and the women, and certainly not just in the national team. There are some youngsters that you watch them play, and honestly, they are jaw-droppingly good. And you just hope that they'll be able to follow their dream, that they'll be able to play, and they'll be able to get to that professional and elite level. And I suppose for me, the fact that I'm in the UK at the moment, it's just seeing how it works, how these other clubs work, how these big clubs work. And then thinking, how can I create a pathway for the youngsters to be able to get the opportunity to showcase their talent within this wider space.
Right.
You know, because that's what it's all about. There's just so much talent, and there just needs to be a pathway. So that is the big challenge. That's the focus.
You know, I love that, because I feel like it's something that is so integral to non-major rugby countries. You know, I feel like we see this level of talent underneath, but it's almost like a lot of the same problems. Even US, Canada, doesn't even matter. Just if you're a non-major rugby country, and that's basically like almost all of them except for like 4. So it's just like you see this issue and how to get the engine running, and it's, you know, from the, I guess, outside looking in, and then slowly getting a better look inside. Like, I wonder if a lot of it has just been the culture of rugby itself, having been while vocally inclusive, and it has executed, but it has also ironically been an exclusive culture in some ways, or a not very vocal one. So, like, the systems of being able to, that most major sports would haven't played out the same way in rugby. So we see all this left behind talent as opposed to maximization.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No, please continue, because this was just.
No, I was just I was just saying that, you know, one of the things, I was lucky enough to go to the World Cup in Japan.
Yeah.
And what was phenomenal about that is I was able to meet the heads of the different unions and have conversations with them. And I spoke to a lot of the African nations and their unions. And what was absolutely incredible was the way they spoke about South Africa. The fact that South Africa was a larger union, and they weren't just interested in their development. They were also interested in the development of the other African unions to build their space up there. And I think one of the things that certainly is important and crucial is we need those larger unions taking more of an interest in the smaller unions.
Right.
And when I say more of an interest, it doesn't have to be financial. Everything isn't about money.
Right.
I mean, we know a lot is about money.
A lot, but
yet
there's another part to it. Right.
There's another part to it. And I think it's about sharing information. And now when we have Zoom, where we have certainly lots of different things that we can do, we can share knowledge, we can share experiences for the Caribbean, for a lot of us in the Caribbean. And I can tell you this in terms of, if I'm sat in Jamaica, I can't watch rugby.
Right.
Because it's not on. I can't access it. You know, even if you're like Autumn Nations was played on Amazon, you couldn't access those games in Jamaica, even using your Amazon Prime.
Because it's geotagged
because you're
out.
It's geotagged out. And so it's finding ways to, you know, if you can have youngsters watching and seeing the game played at different levels, it also brings excitement to it. If we can share things that are happening in Asia, and some phenomenal things are happening, certainly within women's rugby on the Asian continent, you know, whether it be in Iran. And people are saying, they play rugby in Iran, women's rugby?
Oh.
It's like, you would be surprised.
Right.
They're phenomenal.
It's part of that component where it's like, the potential in this, the level of potential the sport has is unbelievable. It goes back to why I go to think, like, I don't understand how this sport that has such heavy reach, that has such heavy intensity, is still like the sixth. It's the sixth largest and might not be even the sixth most popular in most countries. And even in its most popular countries, outside of maybe New Zealand, it's not even number one. Because even South Africa, it's like cricket, football, and then maybe rugby is that third one. Yeah. UK, the same thing. So but I like you, I went to the Rugby World Cup 2019 as well. And I got to see.
There you go. We crossed paths.
There we go. See, that's all I'm saying. I knew there was a point. There was a point. Look, it was incredible. We got a friend of mine. We did a kind of a documentary going through Southeast Asia on the way there, and just literally seeing the way that rugby directly is impacting culture, especially in women's rugby. Cambodia was one place where it was like literally, we're going from traditionalist belief to playing rugby to I can do whatever it is that I want, and that is game breaking. But I don't know if I think it's something that only is maybe not just starting, but like it's the change of the culture. Like I think this pandemic kind of helped shift a lot of things because I think it now opened up where it's like, okay, 1995 to 2020 was the professionalization era. We needed to see if this test worked. Prior to that was the establishment, and now 2021 moving forward is the rugby perspective diversity era where we're now actually feeding everything because it's a different mindset that goes into it, and now it actually adds that inclusive behavior in a way that it included the women because now people can't deny it's significantly important to have the women involved to be able to develop the sport further. And it only adds to what it literally only can add to what the men can do. It does not, take it. It
doesn't
has
take away.
to the two to go hand in hand.
Yeah. And the reality is the women's game, it's one of the fastest growing games in the world.
Right.
And it's the women's game that's actually keeping rugby alive in a lot of countries because, you mentioned that elitism and you see that coming through. And so definitely it has to be a push, especially in some of the rugby playing nations. Like you mentioned, a lot of people are turned off because of false assumptions about rugby, because the one thing rugby hasn't yet been able to garner, it hasn't yet been able to garner the excitement. So many people tuned into the Super Bowl and to watch the Super Bowl. People that don't even watch football, American football,
exactly,
or like American football, they know Tampa Bay won, right? They know the name of the Buccaneers. They know. I mean, I know because of other reasons, but that's not the point.
I understand. It's still sore. It's a whole other thing. Another
Kansas City. Oh, were you Kansas City?
I see. It's less of. So I'm a New Orleans fan, and the Buccaneers are a rival, and I have a very big issue of anybody in our division having more Super Bowls than us, and now it was bad enough. It was the Bucks, and then Tom Brady. It's too many levels of pain. It was still fresh. I thought I slept through it. Still fresh. So,
well, I must admit, my knowledge of American football is so.
That's you know what, it drives the point even more so of what you're saying. Though there's still that knowledge.
Everybody knows
exactly
about American football. They all know about the Super Bowl.
Right.
It doesn't matter where you are, and it doesn't matter that it's not as widely played as rugby. That one day is huge.
Right.
And it also brings in a huge amount of revenue.
Right.
And the fact that considering it's really, I mean, I know they're out in, I think it's 30 something countries now play American football or something. I'm not sure the stats. Yet even with that, you're looking at players receiving a phenomenal amount of money. So there is also that drive to be within that space.
An investment.
So it's that investment. And it's the same if you look at football over here, football, real football, proper football. Let's just get that in, right?
No flexing happening here. You will call us by the right name.
So you have it, and the investment has been put in, and now interestingly, it's been put in at the top level. And so, however, it's still such a huge sport, and rugby has that potential. Yet the only way that it's going to get to that space is if it finds new ways and diversifies. Like you mentioned earlier about diversity, you need that diversification of the portfolio. You need to look at different ways of bringing in sponsors, of bringing people into the game, of getting things happening. And hopefully, I know the RFU have had a complete change of guard almost.
Right.
Hopefully we'll be seeing that certainly over here. And I have to say, with World Rugby, I mean, they've had elections recently. The investment that they have put into women in leadership development, the changes that they have put in place to ensure that there is a seat at the table, it's phenomenal. And they're listening. So they're not there yet, right? Because I need to see a little bit more people of color in that space.
That's that next process that has to be put in. But that's it exactly. And I love that you've basically all the points that you're mentioning is stuff that's hit really dear to my heart, where it's what is it that we want out of rugby? It is making it a little browner in essence. I'll say it for you. No worry. We gotta make it a little.
I said people of color, but yeah, browner. Right. Yeah.
They're not gonna go orange, so but it's making it put more people of color. It is essentially establishing, and I've been a big believer of establishing what we call the rugby industry. I think there's the sport, that's the game itself and what you have surrounding it, but then it's allowing that industry outside of it. Because you mentioned it was like pageantry, like with the Super Bowl, it's not because the Super Bowl has such a significance for all these countries, but it's distribution, how it's being presented is what adds to it. It's, as a result of how it gets presented, it gets more money poured into it. And as it puts more money, we, in essence, just by human nature, place more credibility on the sport, regardless of whatever happens. So, now people are like, okay, we want to invest in. And I think these are aspects that we're only still starting to scratch into. Like, obviously, I know in here in the U.S., and, color me biased, but, we're still like learning this media. I can at least say from where we were when I started 8 years ago, 2013, feels widely different than where we are now. Like it feels like we've seen improvements to the change in streaming, which was huge right there. The aspect of write-ups, and so we're getting more dynamics, but it's still a crawl over there. And I do want to ask this, for you now, having been the vice president, worked with World Rugby, seeing this from the clubs, like how have you felt like the JRU has been able to, work within the country and developing or promoting industry for you guys? Obviously, you guys are still working the field, but like you guys have your own media output and stuff like that. Like, how has that been the process internally?
I mentioned that we're a small team. And so literally when I say a small team, in regards to social media, sometimes it's literally Bruce, it's me, it's maybe a couple of players we've gotten together. Now we have a development officer, so they put out stuff on social media. Nice. Luckily, because of Jerry's ties with media in Jamaica, that has definitely helped us and allowed us some positioning. And as well, I guess, because of my work with TV and radio, I kind of plug rugby every time I can within the Jamaican space. So everybody like gets tired. I walk around with a rugby ball sometimes and they're like, what is this child on? However, there's so much more that can be done. And I think that's one of the things that within our space, we're still, you mentioned about those nations that aren't rugby playing nations. We're one of those. And so football and cricket, that's what people want to see.
King, right.
And listen, the reality is we don't even have a home field. So, it's when we look at media, it's looking at media to kind of garner our community, to work with our community, to get our community excited, as well as then finding ways to bring in sponsorship. And so for us, that's one of the main things is brand Jamaica is a huge brand. Right. And, COVID kind of hit us off track because we had 2 US colleges coming down to play in Jamaica, which would have been fantastic because that would have opened up more in terms of media. It would have opened up more in terms of just people seeing Jamaica as a spot for rugby and a rugby destination as well. You know, beach rugby is growing, and yet within the Caribbean, we only have really Curacao and the States doing beach rugby at any level. And really, it's Curacao that are really leading the way with that. So certainly it's, in terms of media, we are so far behind. It would be brilliant to have a media office, though. It would be brilliant to have somebody that, you know, and content. I think it's content. You know, we're still playing at a grassroots level for the majority of the time, and it's all people that are volunteers that are operating across the space, from referees to coaches. So we are still a long way off, yet it's making sure we attract people that want to have that conversation. You know, there's so much, and I was just about to say something that I'm not allowed to say yet.
Hey, let's go! Come on, exclude it! Come on, let's go!
Yeah, I remember just in time.
You hear this, people? There's something coming. All right, we're breaking it here.
So I think it's that point, though, that you know, we are a small sport, yet so in Jamaica there's a saying "Likabawi Talawa," and yeah, we're Likabawi Talawa, but guess what? That means that actually it doesn't matter how small the country is. We have shown the world time and time again that, hey, you know, Bob Marley, Bolt, you know, Austin,
Shaggy,
there's Shaggy, Sean Paul. I mean, there's so many. And hello, who's your vice president?
Right? Let's go. Let's go. We're getting them all. We're out here. We might be a small country, but we out here like this. We got a whole New York.
You know, I think that's the thing that, you know, we do produce. Jamaica produces time and time again. And we've shown that we can. We've shown that we have the heart. We've shown that we have the passion to do it. And, you know, we just need a little bit more time. Well, we'll see. Repecharge is coming up. So
I'm telling you, look, the mere fact even that you guys are even a part of that again, and having that chance. I know Hong Kong was one of the openings to really being able to blow that through. So, like, the process is already in way, and that's like we said earlier. That's where it started. It's not about are we there yet, but it's like, are we at least charged? Is traffic moving, even if it's slower than what we'd like it to be?
It's moving. It's moving. And it's moving in the right direction. And you know what? We're building that community all the time, and we're seeing things happen. And one of the big things is that we know we're going in the right direction because our governing bodies are happy with us, which is like, what? That itself is awesome.
What is this feeling? Appreciation from everyone? I didn't know it existed like this. It's amazing.
It's wonderful. It is. It really is. And, you know, it's just the fact that there is so much happening. And, yeah, and we're just excited about all that is happening. Our Olympic Association is behind us, or ministry is behind us. Nice. You know, it's at that point where we see it. We're on the edge. We know that we're on that cusp. And yeah, we just need a little bit more support. And our players, both men and women, they're working even now. You know, a lot of them aren't able to do any training with each other yet because of the COVID restrictions and regulations. So they're training at home by themselves. You know, they're doing their workouts to keep fit. They're doing their rugby preparation in terms of ensuring that their rugby knowledge is up. You know, they're doing what they can to make sure they're as ready as possible. And I think, you know, we're working on both levels. We're working at the grassroots and making sure things are in place for that, and making sure we have more coaches. So the minute that restrictions are lifted and we can get back out there on the grass, not grass, that, you know, we'll be in a great space.
Oh no, I believe that full-heartedly, and it's going to be something. I know it's going to be like a breakout show when that as these COVID restrictions go. But it's so nice to know that there is that option. It's not, well, whenever it comes out, we're going to have to start from scratch and we're going to be going through. But it's more like, all right, we'll be able to pick up the momentum a lot more, and that's a completely different mindset than square winning it.
And you also had mentioned something, or had started to touch on something, where we're talking about, changing the landscape or getting more color into certain places. And I think for us, that's really important. So we're not just working at the player level, we're also building our own governance, and we are looking at how next we need to get involved at both the RAN and the World Rugby level to make a stage. It's one of those things that you need people to come in that have had different experiences and that see the world a little bit differently to push the boat a little bit. And let's be honest, the boat needs a little bit of pushing at the moment.
It has been at its own standstill long enough, and you know what? A little bit of a kick to get it moving is definitely needed, and at least it looks like it's coming through. I mean, again, what they did with women, I had the pleasure of talking with Katie Sadler and Adam Milby. So, like, to just even see the excitement in listening to them and that generation, that generating impetus is huge, and just a monumental change in one fell swoop is
definitely
significant.
And I tell you, out of that wild group that's been formed, so that Women in Leadership Development group, already you're seeing changes. Already, they're taking positions, or not taking positions, they're being voted into positions by men who, before hadn't necessarily seen them in the same way. There's certain skill sets that we're learning, that we're utilizing, we're creating. There's a great support network. Rue from Canada, she's now the Canada rep to the RAN board, which is absolutely fantastic. And if you look at our region, I mean, RAN as a region, we are doing exceedingly well in terms of the number of women we have in leadership positions within rugby, and in terms of what we're doing to create pathways. So we're already leading in terms of women and development within our space. So that's absolutely fantastic that we're doing that, and we're showing people, hey, it can be done. And then, if you look at the number of people of color as well on the RAN board, hey, we're doing quite well. We could do better. Yet,
but it's at least it's moving. It's not about settle, but it's just like we're making headway.
Yeah, and I think the big thing, and this is important because it's not just about, changing things for the sake of change, or having the token for the sake of token. No, it's about having the best person for the job in position, regardless of color, race, religion, preferences, whatever it is. It's about having the best person. And I think that what's been happening is the gates have been open so that you can see that these women have the capacity to fill those positions. And so what we want to make sure happens is that they can see that those of color also have the capacity and the skill set needed. And so it's about building and creating a space that individuals, women, people of color, people of different faiths, people of different genders, whatever grouping, because we could go on, that they are given the opportunity to develop within the rugby space and to create pathways that really encourage people to move forward, as well as showing people that, hey, this is something that's out there. This is something that you can do, that you can get involved in. And I think that's the big thing. I did not, and like I said at the start, I did not see how much was involved with rugby in terms of positions. It completely blew my mind.
It's wild. I was about to ask you, and kind of wrapping this up, because I honestly, I could go on for like another 2 hours with you, because I'm really enjoying this too much. We're gonna have to do this again. I'm just let you know this. But kind of like one thing when it comes to perception, and even from the media side, I've started to, maybe the best word is humanize people a little bit more within it. But before you got into governance, how you saw World Rugby, how you saw a governing body, versus now that you're much more into it. When you hear people talk about these governing bodies, these authorities, like, how do you asphyxiate the difference between what they're seeing and what the reality is? Because for me, I've become much more sympathetic to a lot of these movements, whether it's in media or understanding the people a lot more versus what I think people more so on the outside looking in have.
I think it starts, goodness, you know, when you started talking, I went back to my childhood. You know, my dad's a white Englishman that played with other white Englishmen or, you know, other white expats in Jamaica. And so rugby was very much a white expat sport.
Right.
You know, and he was on the Jamaican national team, and the years that he was on the Jamaican national team, I think there was one Jamaican on the national team, you know, whereas if you look today, I mean, yes, we do have a number of British Jamaicans that do play still, and a lot of Jamaican Americans and Jamaican Canadians and stuff, so dual nationalities do play, yet it's a very, very different look to the team. And it's the same for the board. The board is completely different. The people on the board, they've been chosen by their skill set. I mean, we have 3 women on our board, yet they've been specifically chosen for their skill set. It just happens that they're women. I think we have one New Zealander who happens to be white, right? He was chosen for his skill set.
Nice.
And I think that was the difference. It's that it's looking, you know, when you can get to that point where you're not looking to change the face of something and it's happened more organically,
right,
then that's what rugby should be about, and that's showing the change. You know, it's not saying exclude a group or not have a group or, right, you know, fill a quota. It's about having that diversity. So when you look at governance, my impression was white Englishmen in suits, you know, with the blazers and the smart rugby tie. That was the view. Now let us be honest, that is still predominantly the view. Yet it is changing.
Right.
It is changing. And there is a drive from a lot of people, you know, not just people that say, hey, we're knocking at the door. There's a drive from people inside saying, hey, let's open the door. And let's not just open the door. Let's find ways to assist in development. World Rugby would not be putting in the kind of money that they're putting in to help develop women in leadership if they were not interested in ensuring those doors were open to women in leadership or to women. And so they're putting things in place. So we're seeing that there is a change. And the fact is that will only come if players that are coming up through the system also feel that they can access that. So admittedly, I am one of those people. I am privileged. I come from a very privileged background in both Jamaica and in the UK. And so therefore doors, I don't think of doors as being closed.
Agreed.
You know, I kind of think of them as, or not locked. They might be closed, they're not
but
locked.
They're not locked. It's like, I can get in. You just got to let me know. I just have to turn the knob a little bit. Let me go make the effort.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just, I have to know that there's a door.
Right.
You know, maybe, and I think that's what we need to really do. And I think World Rugby are open. We're seeing more and more players. I think the perception, though, is what hurts us sometimes, because sometimes we see the perception that, okay, it's this bunch of old white men,
right,
and I'm gonna say it, and so therefore we automatically think, so I should not be there because I do not belong.
Right.
So it might not be the men in suits that are saying you don't belong. It might be us individually saying I don't belong.
It's that imposter
They don't
syndrome.
look like me. Yes. And so it's that whole thing of, you know what? Black people have been playing in rugby from, what was it, the 1800s? I think you had one of the first black players playing. We've been a part of the conversation in lots of spaces. And so if somebody wants to be in a particular position and wants to be in that space, then you need to make sure you're skilled up so that you can be in that space. I believe that World Rugby is at the point where we can push a door wide open because they are listening. And we are seeing change. It's very different in a lot of sports, and certainly even in things like the Black Lives Matter movement, the same backlash that was seen by American sports wasn't seen by the British sports, because don't get me wrong, there is racism, right? It's just expressed in a different way.
Right.
And so that gives certain opportunities that are there, and it allows certain questions to be asked and certain discussions to be had. And I think if we're willing and able to have open and frank discussions, then that will also help. I think maybe we haven't spoken about it. We've got James Bailey at the moment, and I'm going to say, hey, that's another British Jamaican there. You got to rep it.
Let's go.
He's having conversations about diversity in rugby from a player perspective, from a coach perspective, from a governance perspective. And so it's also down to the fact that, culture is also about people wanting to play a particular sport. So certain groups will prefer their children to play certain sports because of a perceived impression of that sport.
Exactly.
And so within rugby, it's not just about the diversity of ethnicity, it's also about the diversity of class. Certainly if you look at within the UK, people make assumptions that to be a rugby player, you have to be from a public school.
Private school, whatever, all that.
And that's it. In England, we call private school public school.
Oh, gotcha. I don't understand your system at all. The school that's exclusive is the one that's for public, and I don't understand.
A school where you have to pay fees
is the one that's public. I don't understand your system. I don't understand your terminology. The Americanness is not.
I understand. So it's I think that the faces that we're seeing are changing, and if we look at the faces that are there is change, and change is happening, and potentially, if we look at the last election, I think some hands were played a little wrong or weren't played as wisely as they should have.
We're talking about the World Rugby elections, because a lot of elections have happened over the course of the last.
World Rugby elections. World Rugby elections.
You got to be specific in this day and age, right?
Sorry, yeah. Oh no, I'm not even gonna touch on your election. Right? No, I'm talking the World Rugby elections. And so we're seeing that change can happen, yet we have to have conversations. And one of the things that we haven't seen is we haven't seen unity amongst the other unions. So we need to be talking to each other, and we're certainly within this region, we're doing that more, we're talking more. And so that is fantastic. And so, we need to make sure we're also talking to USA and Canada more in terms of their unions and their leadership, because it's about having a voice. And I tell you what, the African unions.
I'm so looking forward. You have no idea how much that one, especially with the way that Rugby Africa has been developing and just seeing what they do. And of course, I'm Nigerian, so I have a particular invested stake in them getting back and getting this green, white, green onto the big stage there too.
No. Okay, in terms of African nations, I have to support Uganda and Kenya.
Look, I appreciate what they've done, and also Uganda and Madagascar, low-key, much more powerful rugby nations than I ever imagined in my life. I need them to come. Right? Oh my goodness, I was like, what is happening? That being said, I need us to be premier on top. All right, everybody else is all good. but we need to be premier on top and then let everybody else fall into their place where it goes from there. So I give them all the credit, but it is one thing that I've wanted to be able to see. I've done Asia a lot, but seeing Africa, seeing South America, seeing the Middle East develop, seeing the Caribbean develop, and then and Oceania and Europe is already in its establishment, but seeing these areas where the progression of people, one, how young these areas really are, just gives so much to go. And then two, because of the advent of the internet and how much it's developed, like the spread just goes in a whole different way, and how it can be consumed is significant. And it's just, I do look for that to continue to increase. And if it wasn't for this pandemic, I would have been working for them. We have this HBCU rugby class. Like, I've been working to try and get them to come through. So I'm just like, I need to figure how do we make this all happen? I want everyone here to play, because I think a lot of people don't realize what it is because they've never had a need to, and there hasn't been the presentation. But as we know, there's a lot of elements that have been underlying to that. So it's great to see where it goes. Keisha, look, I do not want to end.
I've been talking too much. I'm sorry.
There's no such thing as talking too much. Look, we're gonna have, whether it's even off or on, we're gonna keep talking, because I enjoy the way. I love the way you think, and it like I said, it speaks to my rugby soul and my ambitions as well. So I love being able to see it. But for the audience, I'm not going to let them have everything. They're going to have to come back for a second one. Can you tell them where they can either find you or where they can learn more about the work that you're trying to do? I know you also got Dragonfly, and we didn't even get to that because that's a whole different element that I would have wanted to explode, but they'll have to come back for that one. So, where can they find you and the work that you've been doing in JRU?
I'm just trying to think. Boy, I didn't even think about that. So literally, if you look up Jamaica Rugby Football Union or Keisha Ann Down, I am the only Keisha Ann Down people that's out there. I don't know if that's because the last name seems so strange to so many folk. So yeah, apart from the book Keisha Ann Can, it's Keisha Ann Down, and you can just look me up, and it has my email address online, as well as contact details. I'm on LinkedIn, so find me on LinkedIn.
That's where we make it work.
Or Facebook, or I don't know. I'm easily accessible, and if you're interested in rugby and getting involved in Jamaica Rugby, or if somebody's interested in just a woman who wants to get involved in rugby and doesn't know how, I'm happy to chat, happy to connect, and let's make this sport even better than it is.
Let's go. This is what I'm talking about. I love it. Keish, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Really, really appreciate it. And wow, the time. Oh my goodness.
This is how we do. That's when you know it's just good. You don't even feel it.
Yo, guys, thank you so much, Keisha. This is the best. So, thank you so much for being on, and everybody, once again, thank you for just taking the time to listen, enjoy. And guys, this isn't even our only one. If this is your first time coming in, you need to subscribe into this now. You got to get on this thing while there's still the getting on. I mean, there's always still getting on. You're never going to be too late, but you want to get in so you can pick up on the episode, so you can catch up. So then now, whenever you're doing it, you're going in at real time, all right? You're going at real time. We've had some amazing guests. Last week, we had Ryan Ginty of Next Level Rugby, the next major producer for rugby here in the U.S. and definitely probably worldwide. We had Sarah Alice Sal a couple weeks ago. Whenever it came to talking about the intricacies of USA Rugby as her former time as a national manager and now as a runner of Tory Rugby, we had Katie Sadlier, who is the general manager for women's rugby for World Rugby, and unfortunately probably was having to be part of the decision to unfortunately close off the Rugby World Cup women's. We've had Adam Milby, the president for the Philippines Rugby Union. Had Tozan Tutitanwe of Viral Rugby. We had Warren Mullis and Preston Thompson of Red, White, and Black Eye, the American Rugby podcast. And Tiffany Faye. We had Brazil's Gabby De Pellegrini, Vitor Ancina, Leo Crema of Curitiba Rugby. We've had Dr. Amelia Luciano, World Rugby referee. Georgie Coda of Drop Kickers. We had Kamani Davis of Roots and Made. Like, we've had some amazing guests. We've had Adam Gray Hayward from the movie Play On. We've had Rashad Litford from North Carolina A&T's, Cheddar Emba, USA Rugby Sevens, Alina Stradelman of Swiss Rugby, and you guys know her as Angie Elena on Instagram. Like, an amazing assortment of guests, great stories, great angles, all of them uniquely different while also having a same foundational base. It's a beautiful thing, I gotta say. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. But the most beautiful thing is knowing that you guys are still here, still listening, still wanting to take in new information and being able to learn more about people, and I appreciate you always. You make it exciting for me to come through. So I hope that you guys know that I hope you're happy, I hope you're healthy, and I hope you know that you are highly favored. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Yo, I want to talk to you guys about the HBCU Rugby Classic and Music Festival. Yo, this is the best event that is coming out in terms of cultural rugby. It is a representative of the historically black colleges and universities, but not just simply to represent for them, but to be able to continue to promote the development of rugby in all communities. And we want you guys to know that we are coming back for May 1st and 2nd, 2021. Do not want to miss this one. I know there's a chance that you guys might not be able to come into the stadium, but please be sure to get ready to watch it. We have a great set of teams coming up, great invitations from youth rugby all the way up to senior level rugby. So we are not just going to make it so that you only look for or understand one part, but this is for the whole shebang. This is something that is growing that will only make us better. So definitely check out more information at www.hbcurugbyclassic.com or find us on social media at HBCU Rugby on Twitter and HBCU Rugby Classic on Facebook and Instagram. Guys, I know you're going to love this.